Hello and welcome to week 7. This week we are going to be talking about emotional intelligence, which kind of summarize is the ability to manage emotions for good. Today we are going to talk about just an overview of the 4 components that make up emotional intelligence. It's a little bit of a review for you of the videos that we watched, but just some detailed information. And I'm going to give you a couple of really easy practices to put in place around these. We're going to look into empathy a little bit. We're actually going to talk about relationships next week, so we'll hear a lot more about that and how our emotions play into building relationships, building healthy relationships. And then we're going to finish up with a review of 6 steps that you can take to increase your emotional intelligence, which is abbreviated by EQ, just like intelligence is measured by the intelligence quotient, which is IQ. Emotional intelligence is referred to as EQ. So overall, emotional intelligence is the ability to identify and manage your own emotions as well as the emotions of others. And it includes these 4 components: self-awareness, self-management, which is really your ability to manage your own emotions; empathy, which is recognizing and kind of understanding and relating to other people's emotions; and then how do we put all this into place to develop healthy, positive relationships? So first of all, self-awareness, in this case, refers to our ability to identify and name our own emotions. We talked about this quite a bit last week, where we identified 10 positive emotions and how to know that we're feeling, which kind of specifically which thing we're feeling, the impact that it has on our bodies, just like humor, amusement, and joy are really energetic emotions that kind of get us going and feel differently in our bodies than something like serenity, which is a really calming, positive emotion. But we know that there's a very wide range of emotions besides just those 10 positive emotions. So this is really about being observant of how you feel and how your body reacts to any given situation, any kind of trigger or stimulus, either positive or negative. Just being able to be aware in that moment of how your body's reacting, recognizing maybe when you your heart starts to beat a little bit faster, that you might feel nervous, or you might feel fear, or you might be feeling excitement. One way to get really good at this is to ask others for perspective and evidence, especially if you've gotten into a situation where your emotions have hijacked you a little bit, where you got really angry and you possibly overreact with someone, kind of going back to that situation and learning from it, maybe what some of the cues are to be able to know that your emotions are building up to that point. And using the emotion wheel to really get specific in your vocabulary, to really refine the way that you're able to identify both your own and other people's emotions. So this is a review from last week. We learned that emotions are not necessarily hardwired into our brains or our DNA, maybe has been suspected before, but they're built. So we are really kind of in control of them once we start to understand them. And emotions are data, not directives. So you don't have to act on everything you feel. You don't have to say everything that you're thinking when you're in an emotional situation. They're just information to help you step back and get some perspective on a situation, maybe take a pause for a second and be able to respond thoughtfully to a situation rather than again, kind of being hijacked by your emotions. And emotions are not necessarily negative. We don't really want to use the label negative and positive emotions. Some of them can feel really difficult, and you can identify a bunch here that you see on this wheel that you probably don't want to feel, and your response might be to get out of that, to get away from that emotion really quickly. You can see there are also lots of really positive emotions, and those are the ones that, again, we want to be aware of and be able to cultivate. The second component of emotional intelligence is self-management. So once you have the vocabulary and once you're able to be observant and be able to identify your emotions, you really want to have the ability to regulate them. So being aware of reactions and triggers, and using pause. There's so much power in that really brief moment where you feel something and you've identified it, and now what's your reaction slash response going to be, and being able to be in control of that, being able to regulate that. So once you can do that, you can actually harness and adapt the energy that comes from emotions towards positive outcomes. So things like anger and fear give you motivation to act. And if you can harness that towards positive action, in really making a difference in fighting for something that's important to you, rather than having your reaction be out of your control. Again, you can ask others for perspective on this, people that know you well and have seen how you react in certain situations, just being able to maybe take things down a notch. And if you do get into a situation where you feel like you could have handled it better, be able to look back and practice and reflect. So we mentioned the pause. That's the moment between stimulus and reaction. So something happens, it can trigger you, it can elicit a really strong physiological reaction, and you want to be able to stop in that moment and kind of get a hold of the situation. And so deep breathing is really, really helpful in that. We'll talk a lot about mindfulness in another module. We've mentioned it a little bit already. Practices like meditation, again, deep breathing, things that help you get into a place of calm and non-reaction, where you can respond in a way that is more thoughtful. And so I love this one, breathing in, taking a deep breath in calms your body. Breathing out allows you to smile and acknowledge the present moment. We talked about this a little bit last week as well, but again, if you can name, if you have the vocabulary to name your specific emotion, kind of drill down to get at what you're really truly feeling, rather than I'm just mad. You're not mad, you feel mad. I feel mad. Why are you mad? It's not fair. I feel like it's not fair. And as you kind of look through here, angry, mad, what exactly do you feel? I feel it's not fair. I'm upset that someone else was chosen over me. And really, if I'm honest, I feel jealous. And so once I'm able to get to that level, I can, okay, I got it. I feel that. Like, I'm not judging myself for feeling jealous. That's can be a really natural reaction to something, but I don't have to act on that in the moment. What I can do is, take that energy and use it to feel more determined, to practice harder, and then that way I might get picked first next time. The third component is empathy. So you hear this word a lot, and it's not the same thing as sympathy. If you, we watched in the video from Brene Brown that sympathy and empathy are two completely different things. Empathy is the ability to recognize to understand and to relate to others' emotions. So it's really important for us to be able to recognize not only what we're feeling, but what other people are feeling. And sometimes that takes a lot of practice. We're not necessarily mind readers, but you're taking cues from people's body language, physical reactions, the words that they're using, and being able to understand that and then relate to it, kind of put yourself in their shoes so that you can figure out how to support them in that situation. So Brene Brown defines it as feeling with people. So that's, again, the ability to kind of share. You don't necessarily have to take it on. You don't have to take in what other people are feeling so that it weighs you down too, but you can be there for people to share and understand. It kind of creates in us the urge to connect and help. And again, that's the difference between compassionate empathy and sympathy, is that, oh, I'm so sorry. And she gives the example of our reaction tends to be, well, at least it's not this. At least, it could have been worse, is that reaction of ours to minimize how other people are feeling. And that definitely doesn't help very often. If you've ever had someone say something like that to you in a difficult situation, you know that it doesn't help a lot. And so steps to practicing empathy to get better at this, in being able to connect with other people, taking perspective, so really putting yourself in their shoes, staying out of judgment. This is hard. This takes a lot of practice because I think we have the tendency to judge a situation, judge how someone's reacting, judge them against ourselves. So, kind of like, well, I can't believe that person feels like that when I have it much worse than them. It's not that kind of comparative judgment, but just really recognizing the emotions that they're feeling, communicating them back so that they know that you understand. And in most cases, it's just giving somebody space to feel those emotions in a safe place with you so that you're providing support for them. And lastly, the fourth step is relationship building. So the point of emotional intelligence is in developing our connections and our ability to collaborate with other people. It's kind of important at work, or maybe in school if you're working on a team project, to be able to kind of understand what's going on with other people, understand if people react in certain ways, that they might be feeling left out or they might be feeling insecure, being able to try to understand some of those things. And when a group is, or a couple, two people have emotional intelligence, it looks and feels like psychological safety, which is the ability to express yourself, be yourself, ask for help, all in a safe space. It's respect for differences, valuing the differences, and considering everyone's point of view, being able to bring all of that to the table, and for everyone to feel that they're included and that they belong. So a really, really good practice for enhancing your EQ in relationship with other people or another person in the moment when you have the urge to react in a certain way, take that pause and then check your response by asking yourself, does this really need to be said? And if it's an important point to get across or an observation that you're sharing with someone, does it need to be said by me? Am I the appropriate person to be saying this? And if it's in an emotionally charged moment, does it need to be said now? So if in your thoughtful process, you do decide that you do need to say something now, you want to be empathetic in your response, so letting people know that you understand how they feel. And sometimes it's something that might be better said from someone else in the situation, and it might be said at a later point. I love this visual example of what emotional intelligence looks like between here, it's between two people, a photographer and a subject, of understanding how something that you can say can have an emotional impact on people. She took these pictures, kind of these before and after pictures of the person just posing how they would normally, and you can see some of them look a little bit uncomfortable, and then after she let them know she thinks they're beautiful. So you can see the impact, the really positive impact just letting someone know that has on them and their beautiful smiles afterwards. And then this finally is just kind of a review of what you heard in the TED Talk with Rebecca Hacker. She talked about not really learning about how to manage her emotions when she was young, and some of her recommendations of how we can start teaching that in school. But for each of us as individuals, these 6 steps. Number 1, acknowledging that emotions are valuable. A lot of us have been taught that logic is much more important than emotions, especially in terms of making decisions. And so we kind of devalue emotions as we feel them and maybe don't express them or kind of stuff them down. But acknowledging that they're really important information too, and that they're always valuable. And then being able to differentiate and analyze your emotions. That's where the emotion wheel comes in, where you can really get kind of specific in the vocabulary that you use to describe them. Accept and appreciate them, so not judging them, but they're there, and a lot of times they're uncomfortable, a lot of times they're amazing. So being able to really just kind of in the moment appreciate your ability to have them at all, and then reflect on them and where they come from. She recommends journaling and some other things. There's a practice that we'll be doing as an activity this week about reflecting back on a difficult emotional situation and kind of rewriting your story around that. And then figuring out on your own the best way to handle your emotions. If you're somebody that gets really angry really easily, figuring out different strategies for diffusing that in the moment so that you don't act out of anger, that you don't react, that you're able to respond. So taking deep breaths, maybe being able to walk away and come back to the situation, different things that people do. And then finally being able to, the whole point of this is being able to handle the emotions of other people so that you're not thrown off by other people's emotions and you're not triggered to react to them, but that you can observe non-judgmentally and empathetically and help other people make the most of their emotions as well. So that's it for this week. I love this quote that really, I think, summarizes emotional management and emotional intelligence really all together, that you'll never be able to stop the waves. So learn to surf.